Good morning. This is the House Prevention of Discrimination panel, and it's Monday, April 26th. The meeting is called to order. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
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 So on the agenda for today is to finish the good work we've been doing, not only the last biennium, but especially now in our prior meeting to finalize the policy document for this panel. And Damien, if you could take it from here, and everybody, anybody want to have the policy on the screen for Damien to share? I think it would be helpful to me
Okay.
unless people prefer to be looking at each other.
All right, I can share it quickly, and it should be pretty quick to go through. So can everybody see that?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so let me just make it a tiny bit bigger. There we go. So the yellow highlights are the changes. Very few changes here. The first is the date. The second is a recurring change you'll see reflecting the new name of the Office of Legislative Counsel and the addition of the Office of Legislative Operations. And then going down to page 2, this was something that we had just missed last year. We'd kept the plural references from the sexual harassment policy, but since only the House has a discrimination panel, this is just singular. Again, updating the reference to the Office of Legislative Counsel, adding the Office of Legislative Operations, making the panel singular. And that brings us on page 5, the bottom of page 5, under Roman numeral 3A. This was language we discussed at our last meeting back in, I think it was February. The complaint does not need to be in any specific format and may be written on or by or on behalf of the complainant. The complainant may either submit an electronic copy of the complaint to a member of the panel by electronic mail, or provide a signed physical copy of the complaint directly to a member of the panel. And that was a change we made to reflect just the reality of working remotely. So that's an update. It used to be that you had to provide a signed copy to a member of the panel, and obviously that would make things very difficult right now. Questions on that change? Okay, I don't hear or see any. I can't see all of you, so speak up if you do have a question, please. The next change on page 6, this was something we again talked about last meeting, is the panel may also, in its discretion and with the consent of the complainant, refer allegations that may constitute a violation of the sexual harassment policy to the appropriate panel directly. So this subdivision of the policy here basically provides that the panel can inform individuals of their right to submit a complaint to the appropriate panel, but it can also do that with the consent of the complainant, just do that directly. So for example, if there is, if for example, this panel received a complaint where you have a mix of, let's say, sexual harassment and racial and sex-based discrimination, you may want to refer the sexual harassment portion of the complaint directly to that panel while you review the other portions. And that might be easier than leaving it up to the complainant to do if you're already looking into the complaint and you want to coordinate sort of efforts with the other panel. For example, maybe you use the same investigator to investigate the complaint or something like that if it's going for a formal complaint. So questions on that? Okay, don't hear any. The next is again the Office of Legislative Counsel change. Again on page 8, same update. On page 10, multiple instances of the Office of Legislative Operations, Office of Legislative Counsel, and then the change to the Joint Legislative Management Committee there just to reflect the new terminology in the General Assembly. Same changes on page 11. And same changes on page 12. And just the addition of a written before the word report for the annual report. So probably in late November, early December, I'll contact the members of the panel so we'll know the number of informal resolutions and the number of formal complaints. Typically in the sexual harassment policy, we've also included information about the number of inquiries for information. This policy doesn't provide for that, but that's something that the panel may decide to provide in that report. But what I'll do is I'll reach out to you in late November, early December, just to make sure that my count is accurate and see if there's anything else the panel wants to include. So for example, if there were a lot of inquiries for information, the panel may want to include that just to say, you know, we had 18 members to reach out for information on the policy or who was covered by the policy and that sort of thing. The final change here, let's see. There was one other change here that I wanted to mention to the panel. And that's regarding the assistance for the panel. Just find that. Oh. Okay, so for both this instance here, can you still read the text there, even with the search box open?
Yes.
There. Okay, great. So right now it says that the Office of Legislative Counsel shall provide legal advice, assistance, and administrative support to the panel. There are two instances where it says that. One thing, the second is under jurisdiction of the panel. The first is under hearings. One thing that I wanted to suggest to the panel is having the Office of Legislative Operations provide administrative support, such as scheduling meetings, posting documents, and so forth. Previously, when this was the larger Office of Legislative Counsel, that would have been Office of Legislative Operations and Legislative Counsel were under the same umbrella, but now we're different offices. So I just wanted to propose this change. The potential, the one other thing that this will raise is just an issue with the confidentiality. You'll also want to add the Office of Legislative Operations to that, just requiring confidentiality if there are records that are not public, but that are being disseminated. So for example, if Mike had to be present for a hearing or something like that, this would basically require him to maintain the confidentiality of the hearing as well. So
yeah, it sounds like a good idea.
Any
What do you all
other
think?
comments or questions, thoughts on that?
Sounds like we should do that.
Okay. All right, let me make the change. And Mike is on right now. I spoke to him about this morning, but I'll let him speak for himself.
Should we have some very concise, brief language in there about how to protect communications that are being shared? The standard boilerplate confidentiality language for emails, for example, that I think is on our legislative emails.
We do have confidentiality language in here. And I'll bring you to that in just a second. So confidentiality and maintenance of records. So it basically says members of the panel, the Office of Legislative Counsel, Office of Legislative Operations, and any attorney, individual, or entity that the panel has contracted with shall keep confidential any information obtained and all records produced or acquired in accordance with this policy, except to the extent necessary to carry out an investigation. And we could change that to, if it felt better for the committee, and all communications or records produced or acquired. And that basically covers it, the communications. And then you just have to remember, when you're sending communications for this, you have to be very careful about who you communicate to. And then also, if you're going to keep them in your email, they should be kept in a discrete folder. And we can work with the new Human Resources Director and Legislative IT to see if there is a better way to, for example, password protect the folders, and other best practices to employ on that. That's a little outside of my area of expertise, but that I can add the communications language, though, if the panel would like.
I would like that, and would love the support of the communications experts on locking folders and files.
Yeah, so the files will be kept in a locked filing cabinet, any physical files, and then everything else will be kept password protected. So we'll, and the Office of Legislative Counsel is charged with maintaining the records. So those will all be kept in a locked filing cabinet, probably in my office for the time being. And then if whoever succeeds me, or if we get a centralized place to keep the sexual harassment panel and the discrimination panel records, they might be kept there instead. But yeah, for the time being, they'll be kept in a locked filing cabinet in my office. I have 3 lockable filing cabinets in there, so there's plenty of space to keep them securely.
Mike popped up for a bit.
Yeah, Mike can comment on adding Office of Legislative Operations.
Yeah, sure. So we regularly provide administrative support to all standing committees of the House and the Senate of the General Assembly. So this would fall very appropriately into our wheelhouse. I tend to take on the more rare meeting committees like this. So I'll serve as your committee assistant. And anytime you folks need a meeting, just let me know. Happy to help.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so that's it for the changes here. I'm going to take off the yellow highlighting, and I guess I can unshare my screen. You guys don't need to see me saving and updating. And so I can take the yellow highlighting off and just produce a final copy of this, unless there are any other changes that the panel wants to make this morning.
Anybody have any ads, questions? Has everyone had it? No? Okay. Everyone had a chance to review the policy that Damien sent out? Me too. All right.
Yeah, so you need to probably take a formal vote on it. And then it'll need to be disseminated to the House, probably in coordination with the Speaker's office.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I will move to approve the report in its current updated draft.
Happy to second.
For the policy, I guess it's not a report, policy.
All right. Seeing as we don't have a clerk, I will call the roll. Unless Damien, do you want to do that?
Sure, I can do that. Let's see, Representative Matos,
Yes.
Representative Pahala,
Yes.
Representative Small,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes.
It's 401.
That
Okay,
feels good.
It does. This is
That's such a
long
A long haul.
Damien,
Got
thank
there.
you for bearing with us through the.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Damian.
2 bienniums. At least, right?
Yeah.
yep. All right.
Well, should we
Okay.
talk about,
Yeah, so we need to have a motion to go into executive session, and then Mike can take us off of YouTube and we can discuss the issue that's come up.
Okay, I move that we go into executive session to discuss an issue that's come up.
And I second.